Hello and welcome to another Easify video. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use the Easify Product Importer to import products from an Excel spreadsheet or CSV file into Easify. If your suppliers provide you with Excel or CSV based price lists, you can import these directly into Easify, which saves you lots of time over having to manually enter the products. Or if you're migrating from another software package, you can export your product list from it and import it into Easify. You can also use the Product Importer to update your products. If you receive an Excel or CSV price list from your suppliers with updated pricing, you can use this to refresh the prices of the existing products in Easify. Not only that, you can also use the Product Importer to import stock levels to Easify. If you receive a delivery and have a spreadsheet or CSV file with a list of the quantities you've received, you can use this to update the stock levels in Easify. Now, the Easify Product Importer is a powerful tool. It takes a bit of setting up. So I'll walk you through the steps one by one, and we'll talk about a few gotchas to watch out for along the way. Okay, let's get started. So let's start by just talking a little bit about what the Easify Product Importer is and what it does. Basically, the Easify Product Importer allows you to take a CSV file, which is basically a text file full of products, and you can import that into Easify, and it will convert that whole list of text-based products into actual Easify products. So if we open up Easify Pro, and we log in, and we go to products, you can see we have a list of products here. And if you open up a product, there's all kinds of information about it. It has a description, manufacturer category, subcategory, various stock codes, and all kinds of information. It has pricing information and stock levels. Using the product importer, you can take a list of products from a CSV file, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And you can import that into actual Easify products. So why is that useful? Well, your supplier might provide you with an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file of their product price list, and you can import your products from that. Or you may be moving from a different software package to Easify, in which case you can probably export your products from the old package and then pull them over into Easify. So it gives you that sort of functionality. Now, we've talked about CSV files and Excel files. You can import from a CSV file, but a CSV file is just purely text. Now on the desktop here, I've got a test CSV file that we're going to be playing around with today. And if I right click that and say edit, that'll open it up in Microsoft Notepad. And it looks horrendous. There's loads of information. By the way, if it looks like this and all kind of jumbled up, not that probably looks any less jumbled up to you. If it looks like this, though, you need to go to Format and untick Word Wrap. Word Wrap will actually prevent the lines going beyond the edge of the window. So this means that if you look at this, just take it from me that this is the first line, even though it's wrapped over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. So we need to go to Format and untick Word Wrap, and then it puts each row on a separate line, and it'll actually carry them on beyond the end of the window. That's important with CSV files. Not that we're going to change anything here, but this is just a way of actually seeing what's going on. Now in a CSV file, each row represents a product. So you can see on the first row here, we have this value, which is a stock code. And then the next value here is product description. Ignore these characters here. They're just special characters. And the first row isn't a product. The first row is actually a list of all the column headers. So the first row, you see the first entry in the first row is Easify SKU. So that's the header row. And then the first row below it is the first product. And each column in this table of data, as it were, is separated with a comma. Hence, comma separated value file or comma separated variable file, depending how you want to call it. So this all looks very complicated, but we can simplify this just by creating our own CSV file. Let me just minimize that. And what we can do is we can right click the desktop and we'll say new text document, and we'll say my products. Now you can see here, if I try and change this to a CSV file, if I type .csv, it won't work. It'll just still be a text file. You can see that over here, this particular file shows as an Excel file. And if we hover over it, it says it's a Microsoft Excel comma separated values file. So what we need to do in Windows, we need to change a setting in Windows to allow us to see the file extensions and change those. You don't have to do this. This is just purely for this demonstration. So don't feel like you've got to follow along with this. But I'll show you while we're here. So I'm going to go to Windows File Explorer, and I'm going to go to Open Settings. Oops, no, that's not what I want. Let me have a look. I'm going to go to View, and then I'm going to go to Options, Change Folder and Search Options. That's the one I want. And then under View, if we go down to, where is it? Hide extensions for known file types. That's ticked by default in Windows 10. So I'm going to untick that, and I'm going to say OK. And what that does, let me just hide that again. What that does now, it means all these files, if you select them, it actually shows you the extension, and it's the extension or the last 3 letters of the file name that dictates what kind of file Windows thinks this is. And you can see, even though we put .csv at the end of the name, it still thinks it's a .txt file. So let's just change that, and we'll just remove .txt so that we've now got a file that we've created called myproducts.csv, and I'll click off it. It'll warn us that changing a file name extension might make it unusable. We'll click yes. And see now that the icon's changed to an Excel icon. And that's because Excel is associated with CSV files. If I double click a CSV file, so I double click this, it'll open in Excel and have nothing in it. So let's close that. And what we'll do, I'll right click and say edit so that we can edit it in Notepad again. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a CSV file from scratch. And what we'll do is the first row is going to be our column headings. So we'll call that stock code, comma separated values. Each value is separated with a comma. So we put the first value, a comma to separate it. And like I said, you'll never have to do this. This is just me showing you it more in depth of what a CSV file actually is. So you'll have hopefully a better understanding of how they relate to Easify. So we'll type in stock code, and we'll type in product name, and we'll type in product price, product cost price, let's say. And that'll do. We've got 3 values. So the first row here are the column headings that are in our file. So the headings of each column, and underneath for each row will be a product. So let's have a product with a stock code of 1, 2, 3, 4. The product name will be product 1, and the product cost price will be 5. Another row, and we can have stock code of 5432, comma, each value is comma separated, product name of product 2, and cost price of 10. And we'll go file, and we'll go save. Now, people often ask us with CSV files when they're going to import them into Easify, they often ask us, is there a template? Do we have a template for the format required? Easify will take any CSV file. There is no template. We'll show you that in a moment, but Easify will actually take any CSV file, and it'll let you map the columns to the columns in Easify. So this is an example of that. We've got 2 very different CSV files here. We've got this one, which has Easify SKU, description, manufacturer, category, and so on. This one simply has stock code, product name, product cost price. So it doesn't matter what the columns are, you get to actually map them over in the product importer. So we've got our CSV file there, and I'll close it. Now, if I double click it and open it in Excel, you'll see Excel will pull it in as a table, effectively as a worksheet. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select all by clicking that top left corner, and I'll double click in between the columns, and that will auto size all of the columns to fit the contents. So you can see it's read our CSV file, and it's converted each comma separated value into a column of data, and each row is a separate row in the table. As I said, you're not going to need to manually create a spreadsheet. I mean, you could if you wanted to. You could actually manually create a table and save it. Another way you could do it, and again, this is just background information. Don't feel like you've got to understand this to use the product importer. If I close that, and let's say I go to Excel, what I could do is I could create a CSV file in Excel. I'll say blank workbook, and then I could say prod SKU, and I could say desk for description, and I could do CP for cost price. Just really to show you it doesn't matter what names you use here. I could do 111 prod A 0.5, just put some arbitrary values in, 222, prod, B, 1.2, And then what we can do here is we can go File, and what we need is Save As. If you just save this, it will save as an XLSX file, which won't import into Easify. Easify can only import CSVs. So we're going to say Save As, and we'll say to the desktop, and we're going to call it my products from Excel. And as I said, it's going to save it as an XLSX file, Excel workbook. We want to save it as a CSV. So just go down here, choose CSV, comma delimited, and we'll click Save. And in Excel, it pops up and says, some features in your workbook might be lost if you save it as CSV. Do you want to keep using that format? Yes, we do. And all Excel is telling us is that if we've resized these columns, or we've selected a bold font or anything like that, any formatting will be lost. So CSV files don't hold formatting, they only hold data. And that's just Excel warning us about that now. So we want to keep using CSV. So we're done. And if we go to our desktop, we've got my products from excel.csv. And if we right click and do edit, you can see it's just a text file. The first row is the column headers, and the other rows are the actual products. That's a useful trick as well. If your supplier gives you an Excel file, if your supplier actually gives you an Excel spreadsheet, you can open it up in Excel and then just go File, Save As, choose where you want to save it, and select CSV, and then that basically will convert it from Excel to CSV. So it's a handy way to convert a file from Excel format. Okay, right. Well, that's all very, very complicated and heavy, and things don't need to be that complicated. But as I say, hopefully that's a good bit of background onto CSV files for you. I will say as well, if you want more information on that or a reference, go to our website and let it load. And then we go to Help, Easify v4, latest version, Easify Pro Client, which is where all Easify Pro help is. And then you go to Products and Services, importing products into Easify, and there's a whole load of help here about importing products into Easify. So what the things we cover in the video will be mentioned in here, so you can always hop back to here and have a bit of a refresher or a reference as to what's going on. But we do have some information as well about supported file types, so CSV or tab files, as we've mentioned, preparing data for import. This basically tells you what I've said here pretty much. Importing rules such as the first line is reserved for the column headers and names, a new line is a new record. So you can have a look through here, and this will give you some extra info. So if you need to jog your memory at any point, you can always hop in there and have a read of that. Okay, so then back to the product importer. So let's go and fire up Easify Pro. In fact, we've already got it fired up here. It's just hiding. And we're going to go File, Import, Products. Now then, on this window, the first thing we need to do is select File to import. So if you click on Browse, and we'll go to the desktop, you can see the CSV files that are available to import data from. So what we'll do is let's start off with the simple one that we manually created, myproducts.csv. And you select the file and you click Open. You'll notice as well we have a Select Import Settings box here. We'll come back to that in a bit. That will be relevant in a short while. So we'll click Next, and next you get a page of the wizard, the import wizard that says Map Imported Columns into Easify. The columns in the file to be imported are shown in the table below. For each column of data that you would like to import, please choose which Easify column to map the imported data into. Unmapped columns will not be imported. So you can see on the left, the Easify Product Importer, it's opened up our CSV file and it's had a look at the first row and it said, okay, well, these are the column headings I found: stock code, product name, and product cost price. And if we go and right click and edit our CSV file, you can see that the first row has stock code, product name, and product cost price corresponds to product cost price. So hence the reason we don't give you a template. You don't need a template. You know, we don't sort of say, oh, your columns must be called this, that, and the other. You can have your columns called whatever you want, and you can have them in any order, and you can have a column there, or you can not have it. You know, there's no rules as to what you need to import. there is a basic rule, which is you need something. You can't import nothing, obviously, but pretty much all you need is a product description. And I'm pretty sure that if all you've got is a product description, you can import a product from that. And any other information like categories, cost prices, manufacturers, things like that are just bonus values that you can pull in. So then what we need to do here, so this tells us the columns that we've got coming in. We then need to tell the product importer where to put that information. So we're going to say, okay, with a stock code, we're going to map that to the Easify column. And when you pop this drop-down list down, this gives you a list of all of the values related to an Easify product. So here you can see all of the various parameters for a product. You can see whether it's allocatable or not, the category, the condition, the cost price, the description, EAN number, and so on and so on. And if you were to go into Easify products and open a product, then you would see these values that you can edit. So we're going to say, okay, we want stock code. We want that to map to a value of our SKU. And for product name, we want that to go to the product description. And for the product cost price, we want that to go to cost price. Okay, so just to summarize again, the imported column name, these are the columns that Easify found in your CSV file. And map to Easify column is where you want them to go to in the Easify product. So from there, we'll click next. And on the next page of the wizard, you can see that it's giving us a preview of the data in the CSV file. And this is where things get interesting. So what this has done now, the product importer has basically gone to your CSV file. We've told it what the columns mean. It has now pulled the data from your CSV file into Easify. So you can see here we had our two products. And it's given you a preview here of how it's going to actually pull those into Easify. So let's just have a look at that for a moment. I'm just going to stretch this out a wee bit so you can see more of what's going on. And we'll move this down a little bit. Okay, now then, what we've got here, this, as I say, is a preview. So here you'll get a row for every product that's going to be imported into Easify. And on the left, you can see there's a tick box to say whether it's going to be imported or not. And they're ticked by default, assuming the data is okay. The action tells you what is going to happen. So the importer preview window is telling you that this is going to add a new product to Easify. Here you can see it's telling you the data is valid. So when you go to the preview, the Easify Product Importer will check all of your data in the CSV file and make sure it all looks okay. And it'll give you warnings if there are any errors. And we'll go through that in a short while. I'll show you some of that. You notice as well that some of these values have different colors. If you scroll down on the left, you can see we have a color key. If a value is brown, it means the value will be imported from the CSV file. So the description, product 1, and the cost price, £5, and our SKU are brown. So they're values that will be imported from our CSV into Easify. And you can see we have some blue values, and it says that blue value means the default value is used. So because we didn't have a category or subcategory in our CSV file, doesn't matter. But because of that, the blue value here tells us that the product is going to be added to the batteries category into the alkaline subcategory. These are just default values that are used if you don't specify anything different. And we'll talk about those in a moment. Green means data validated okay. And anything that's red means there's an error. We also have a black color. If it's black, it means it's a value that already exists in Easify. And again, we'll talk about that in due course. Before we get into the advanced topics, let's just do an import. We'll do a really basic import. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to accept all of this. It's telling us it's going to add 2 new products. If I now click on import, we get a product import warning, and it says, please note that improper use of the product importer can lead to data corruption or data loss. If there are any errors in the file you are importing from, they will be imported into your Easify database. Also, if you have made any incorrect selections in the import preview window, these incorrect selections will be copied into your Easify database. We strongly recommend that before you import product data into Easify, you back up your Easify database. If you are happy that all of the data in the import preview window is correct, and you are ready to import products, please click the import button below. Now, before we go any further, I'll just sort of explain this rather wordy and ominous warning. Bear in mind that with the products importer, the computer is just going to act like a fast idiot. And what I mean by that is that it's got limited knowledge as to what you're trying to do, but it can't really tell if you're making a mistake or not. So let's say you've got 5,000 products to import and you import them incorrectly, you map the wrong column, or you have a column missing, then you're going to import 5,000 things you don't want into your system. So you need to do this sort of carefully, think about it, and plan what you're doing. But also back up your database. It's always a really good idea to do that. In fact, I'll tell you what, let's go and do that now. I'm going to practice what I preach. I'm going to cancel the import. And what I'm going to do is we'll go there, we'll click cancel, and I'm going to go tools, backup, and I'm going to back up my database. There we go, quick as that. So now I've got a backup. If it all goes horribly wrong, which it shouldn't do, but if it did, I can restore the backup. I will mention as well that if you're doing this for real, bear in mind this is just a demonstration that I'm doing here. We're not actually really doing a proper live import. If you back up your data and then you later restore it, bear in mind that any real data that was entered since you backed it up will be lost if you restore the data. So in other words, if you back the data up at 2 o'clock and then at 3 o'clock you restore the backup because of a problem, you're restoring everything back to 2 o'clock. So if you've got other people working on Easify on, say, a network, and you've got people using tills and all that sort of stuff, if you back up at 2 o'clock and they carry on doing business for the next hour and then you restore the data, you'll wipe that out. So just be aware of that with the backup and restore procedure. If you're going to back things up and then restore them, then do it at a time when only you are using the system. Do it at a time when you're the only one using Easify. It's much safer that way. Okay, right. So we've backed up. Let's go back to the product importer. So we go File, import products, and we will select my product. It's already remembered that, so that's good. And then we click next. Oh, now we've got to go and set all of our stuff back up again. We've got to set up all of our mappings. Well, there's a way around that. What we would do is we'd set up our mappings. So you go in here and you choose all your mappings, and you choose description for this one, and the cost price will be the cost price. As you can imagine, it's a bit of a pain. If you had a really huge CSV file with loads and loads of columns and you have to come in here and you have to map them and work out which column goes where, it can be a real pain if you've got to do that every time. So instead of that, click on the Save button, and this will save your mappings. And click OK. Our mappings are now saved. So if I cancel that again, and I go back to File, and I go Import Products, now what I can do is in the Import Settings drop-down, I can choose My Mappings, click Next, and it remembers everything I've done. So that's really handy, really worth doing. Okay, so we click on Next, and we're back to our product importer. And like I said, we're just going to do an import. We've checked all the data here. We're happy with that. We've been across and we've eyeballed all the things it's telling us it's going to do to make sure we're happy with all of that. So we click Import, and we understand this warning. We've backed our data up, so we're fine. We're squeaky clean. Right, click on Import, and products imported. Okay. That was really quick. I only imported 2 very simple products. If you're importing lots of products, this can take some time. So just be aware of that. We'll click Finish. We'll go to Products, and I'm going to sort by SKU descending, so highest to lowest. And there's our 2 new products in Easify. We've got product 1. We can open that, and we can see we've got product 1 with our stock code of 1234. And we've got product 2 with our stock code of 5432. And on the pricing, it's priced at £10 cost price, which was the value from here. So there we go. That's a really simple product import. So let's go back to the product importer and see some of the other things that we can do. Okay, let's go File, Import Products, and we'll choose our mapping, and we'll go Next, and then we'll click Next again to get to the preview. And let's have a look at some of the default settings in here. In fact, actually, this is interesting now. What we've got now, before we talk about default settings, let's just talk about something interesting that's happened here. If you look at this, now you see we have some values in black. And if you remember from the product key, these are existing values in Easify. And what that means is that because we've imported these products already, now when we've run the product importer, you can see that the action for each has actually become update existing. And what that means is that the product importer won't import them as new products. It's going to just basically refresh the products that already exist. Hence, we've got these values that it's already found. But what I'm going to do is I'll come back to that at the end, I think. This is more along the lines of refreshing products from a CSV file, and I want to cover that separately. So what we'll do, let's just cancel that, and we'll cancel the product import. And I'm going to select these two products, and I'm just going to delete them. So I'll select the first one, hold Shift, click the second one with the left mouse button, right click, and delete products. Are we sure we want to delete them? Yes, we do. Okay, now let's go back to the product importer, and we'll go import products, and we'll select our settings, my mappings 1, and click next again, and there we're back to where we were originally, which is with each product being added as a new product. And I want to just talk about the default settings a little bit more, the ones that are in blue. Now you can see here with the category, because we didn't import a category, it's chosen a default category and it's called it batteries. And why is it called it batteries? Well, if you look on the left here, under importer settings, we have all kinds of settings for default values. So you can see we have a default category, and this is set to the category of batteries. And you can, which is here, you can see for subcategory, it's chosen alkaline, which is what we've got set here under the default subcategory. And here you can change that. You can say, well, okay, I want to pull these products into cookers, and the subcategory will be freestanding. Nothing's changed. Well, that's okay, because you need to click the preview button again. So click preview, and you can see that the default category has changed and the default subcategory has changed. And the same goes for manufacturer. If you wanted to specify different manufacturer as a default, you could go to default manufacturer and you could choose whoever you want and then re-preview the data, and they've changed. And the same for all the other values. So you can specify a default location if you want to. You'll notice with the tax rate, it's set, here we are, it's set the tax rate of S for standard VAT. So you could change that to a different tax rate if you weren't importing that column, as we're not, we don't have a tax rate column. So here you can change that. And yeah, that's basically what the default settings do. And for the pricing, all we've done is we've just imported a cost price. And in Easify, it needs a cost price and a margin to arrive at the retail price. Or we got the trade price and the retail price. So these are your sell prices. It works the same sort of way. You can see that they're in blue. So if we go back here, you can see we've got the cost price. And if you look on the left, there is no default margin setting. And you may wonder, why is how has it come up with a default margin? You can see the retail margin and the trade margin have been set to some values. Well, these are actually pulled from the category. So if you remember if we have a look at the category is cookers, subcategory is freestanding. We cancel that. And we go to products and we look at cookers. If we right click cookers and do options, you can see that there are some default margins set there. And these are 55 and 55. If we look in the freestanding one, right click that and do options, you can see we have a default trade margin of 20% and a retail margin of 30%. So that's where the importer gets the margin from if you don't import it. It uses the default margin of the category. So the idea being that you could set the default margin that you usually achieve on that particular product, and the importer will use that margin if you don't specify otherwise. You could import a product margin and the importer would use that. You can also see that in Tools Options. If you go to Tools, Options, Products, go to the Default Margins tab. Here you can see a list of all the default margins that are set on all the various product categories. So you can set those up if you want to. Bear in mind as well that these the margins you set on categories also apply. If I select freestanding as my category and I click on Add Product manually, you'll see the margin is taken from the default margins. So it gives you a way of setting the default. Okay, right, back to the product importer, import products. Now, as I say, there's a lot to take in with this. The product importer is very flexible and very powerful. So there are just loads and loads of ways in which you can use it. So in this video, really, I'm just aiming to sort of give you a good overview of some of the things you can do, give you some sort of a few tricks and tips as to using it. But ultimately, it's a tool that you're going to have to sort of learn to use. It's not, the product importer isn't something that you kind of fire up, chuck in a spreadsheet, and it just does it magically. You have to take a bit of time to learn it and, you know, work out how you want to use it in your particular scenario. Everyone's going to have a different sort of format to their CSV file, so it takes a little bit of time to play around. You know, you may need to sort of spend some time thinking how you're going to map all your products to Easify columns, and you need to practice a little bit. So, as I say, it's a big subject, and you know, don't try and sort of get it right first time. You just understand it's going to take a little bit of time to get the hang of. Okay, so what else can we look at here? Okay, another cool feature of the product importer is that it can actually create product categories for you if you want. Let's say that we actually want, let's say we have category and subcategory information in our CSV file, and we actually want to import that into Easify. So let's cancel this, and let's go back to our CSV file, and let's change it. Let's edit it. Let's add category. I want to call it my category because I just want you to see that it is a different column name when we do the import. So my category, my subcategory, and that means we've added 2 extra columns. So we need my new category, my new subcategory, and we'll need one for this product. So we'll say my other category and my other subcategory. It can be anything you like here. Okay. Save that. And let's see what we've got. So go back to the product importer file, import products, and we'll select our settings, but they've changed because we've added some columns. So let's click next. And notice now we have 2 extra columns. Well, I'm going to map those to category. My category goes to category. My subcategory goes to subcategory. And I wanted to make these different by saying my category and my subcategory, just so you can see they're different to this. And they can be anything. There's no templates, just call things whatever you want in here. So I'm going to save that again. So I'll save that mapping. We'll click next. And here, what have we got? We've got some errors this time. That's interesting. Let's see why we've got some big red errors. Errors are your friend, because they tell you what's wrong with what we're trying to do. So you can see now under import, the box isn't ticked because the Easify importer has found an error and it's saying won't import. I'm not going to import something that's broken, which is good. That's helpful. And it tells us error, could not set retail price. Make sure you import a retail margin, retail X tax price, or retail Inc tax price, or make sure the subcategory has a default retail margin set in Easify options, or set a default retail margin in the importer settings on the left. All right, that sounds very complicated, but it's not too bad. It's telling us basically that it's saying here, make sure you import a retail margin. Well, we don't have one in there. A retail X tax price or a retail Inc tax price. It's basically telling us it can't work out what price we want to sell the product at. Or make sure the subcategory has a default retail margin set in Easify options, or set a default retail margin in the importer settings on the left. So the reason for this is because we're now pulling in the categories. And just move that down a bit. So now you can see that the category, rather than being blue as a default, so the category is now brown to say, and we look at our key, brown means value imported from CSV. So that means that that value is being pulled in from our CSV file. And you can see that it's no longer set to the default of batteries. It's a new category. Now, what you can do with that, if you look underneath category, there's a tick box alongside auto import new categories. And there's also a tick box alongside auto import new subcategories. What that will do is that will actually tell Easify, it it will tell the Easify Product Importer that if there's a category in the CSV file, then it will actually create that category in Easify. But what it's warning us is that there's no margin set. Now, I don't know if it'll give us a red line on the margin. You notice that there's no pricing there. So what the system is telling us basically is that because we're importing a new category, it doesn't have a margin set. It doesn't know what margin to charge. So what we can do here is we can say, if you remember here, it says, or set a default retail margin in the importer settings on the left. Well, we can go here and we can say, okay, use the default retail margin. And we can specify that. So we can say, okay, well, we want a retail margin of, say, 50%, and we want a trade margin of, say, 30%. Okay, and then we preview the data. And now it's all happy again. And the reason, again, is that if you look over here, the retail margin and trade margin have now been set. So because it has the cost price and the margin, it can work out all our selling prices, and life is good. So with these categories, just remember my new category, my new subcategory, my other category, my other subcategory. So just bear those in mind, and we'll go and import, and we'll import the data and click finish, and we go back to products. And what you'll see now is we have my new category is a new category, and it has my new subcategory, and it has our products in there. And we have my other category, my other subcategory, and they have been created for us. So that's really useful. You can import new product categories doing that as well. So, okay, let's just get rid of that again. Delete that product, and I'm going to delete the category, and I'm going to delete that. Just clean up the things we imported. Let's delete the product and delete the category. I'm just right-clicking and selecting delete there. So we'll do that. Okay, right, we're back to a clean slate again. Now, it's worth mentioning as well that with the importer, if you go import products, you don't have to import everything in your CSV file. So let's select My Mappings 1 and click Next. And we've got everything mapped. Now, that might be what you want, but it may be that your supplier has given you all kinds of columns that aren't relevant to what you do, and you don't need them. You don't have to use them. So you could say, okay, for subcategory, I'll actually say none. Category, I'll just select the blank one at the top, which is none. And I can just import those values. So I'm going to ignore these category columns, click Next, and there you can see that the categories are just back to being the defaults. So you don't have to use all of those. Another handy little trick that I'll show you with the imports is that you can map multiple things into one Easify column if you want to. So let's say your manufacturer gives you a product name, and they give you, well, now let's say that you wanted the product name and the category in the Easify description. What you could do is you could say, okay, map product name to description, but I'm also going to map category to description. And this could be any field. It could be notes. It could be whatever, info, anything. So I'm going to map the product name and the category into the description. Click Next. And now you can see that the description is product 1. So the description is the product name, and it also has tagged onto it the category name. So that's quite a handy little trick to know. You can do that with the fields. You can sort of map multiple columns to the same thing, and it'll just keep appending them to that same value in Easify. Let me just get rid of that. Now, also, let's say you look at your CSV file and you think, I don't want to import product 2. You can untick it. You can just say, okay, we're not going to import that one. And when you click import, it'll only import the products you have ticked. There's a select all box here as well. So you can do select all to select them all, because if you've got lots and lots of products, then you might not want to import them all, or you might want to select them all, or deselect all of them and only select a few to import. Okay, another handy little trick I can show you is how you can actually manipulate product categories after you've done an import. Or rather, let's say you import from a CSV file that doesn't have categories or subcategories. I'll show you a way of importing them and then moving them into the subcategories and categories afterwards. So if we go to products, and as I say, let's assume that we're going to have a CSV file and we're not importing any category info. and we want to handle it afterwards. So what I'm going to do is create a dummy category. So let's just say create a category called unsorted. And I'll give that a default trade margin as well, because it'll make things easier. So we just set that. That'll be the default margins applied to the products. And then in there, I'll create a new product subcategory, and we'll call that unsorted. And we'll keep the default trade margin and retail margin we set on the actual parent category. So now we have a unsorted category. Sorry, we have an unsorted subcategory. So now what we can do is we can go to the product importer, import products, and we'll choose our mappings, and we'll go next. And we're going to not import the category and subcategory. And we'll go next. Let's maximize that so you can see what we're doing. And you can see that that's going to import the products into the batteries category. Well, let's say that they don't both go in there. Let's say one product goes into one category and the other product we want to go into another category, but there's no category information in the CSV file. So what we can do is we can change the default category to unsorted. And then we click preview to reload the data. Now our products are going to go into the unsorted category and subcategory. So we'll do the import and click finish. And then if we click the binoculars with the unsorted subcategory selected, you can see we now have two products in the unsorted category. Then you just find the category you want them in. So let's say the first one we wanted in the alkaline category of batteries. Drag and drop, and it asks you, are you sure you want to change the subcategory of the selected products to alkaline? We're okay with that. And let's say the second one we actually wanted in the rechargeable subcategory. So we drag and drop that one and say yes. And now you can see that our new products, product 2 is in rechargeable and product 1 is in the alkaline section. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. Another way you can do things, if I just drag these back to the unsorted category again. Another way you could, oops, don't know where that went. So let's try it again. Okay, right. Another way you can change things, and this doesn't just apply to the categories, but another way you can change things is with the product bulk editor. Now, when you select a product, if you right click and do edit product, you edit that product. Or if you double click a product, you edit that one product again. If you select two products, and you can do that by just holding shift, selecting the first product and the last product, or you can do it with control. Let me just load up more products actually. Let me just show you more easily what you can do. I select the first product just by left clicking it. If I then hold shift and select another product, I can select a whole range of products, and I'll keep shift held and click again. If you select a product and hold down control, then you can select multiple individual products. So if we go back here, and let's say these are the products we've imported, and I'll select them both. If you right click, now you get edits multiple products. You get the product bulk editor. And when you select that, you get a much more powerful way of editing products. This means you can actually edit multiple products in one go. So what you could do here is, let's say you wanted to move these products to another category. You could load the bulk editor. You could select the category you want them to go into and click OK, and that will affect multiple products. While we're in here, you'll notice we've got various icons. We've got a green padlock, which means leave value unchanged. So that means that the value it's next to will be unchanged. A pencil means that we're going to edit that value. So you can see we're going to edit these values. And erase or zero value means actually wipe that value out and make it nothing or zero. You can tick the boxes as well. If you decided you didn't want to change these, you could just click the buttons and set it back to where it was. Oops, let me just select that and then that. So with say the stock number, you could change that to 1, 2, 3, 4. We're digressing a little bit, but while we're here, I'll show you that. And that says that's going to edit that stock number, which would change it for all products. So we probably wouldn't want to do that. So we'll just move that back to unchanged. With the erase or zero value, you could use that. So let's say you had a whole load of products with all different shipping weights. You could just set it to the eraser, and that will just zero that value. So this is another way that you can manipulate your products after you've imported them. So if you find during an import, you think, okay, well, there's some missing data from the CSV file that I don't have, and there's things I want to change. This is a way that you can import a load of products, and then you can change values all in one go. You might import 50 products and want them to go into different categories. You might want 10 in one category, 10 in another. Well, with this, you could just import all 50 into an unsorted category, and then you could select 10 products, right-click, do the bulk editor, and move them to the category that you want, and click OK, and sort of do them in batches like that. Okay, so that's a way of bulk editing products that you've imported. So another way of manipulating data is you don't have to do it all in Easify. You can actually manipulate data in the CSV file before you import it. So for that, let's say we open up this spreadsheet in Excel, and we've got a very simple CSV file that we're importing, and let me just rename that to cost price, so it's more obvious what it is. And let's say that your supplier sent you a big CSV file with loads of products in, and there's no categories in there. You could either import them into Easify and then move them into categories, or you could actually add in a category column yourself. So edit the CSV file and enter in a category column and a subcategory. And then you could say batteries or whatever the value is, then select it and just drag that down. And then you could have alkaline, and you could have rechargeable. And you can use Excel to bulk edit things. You could select a whole range of products and set the categories. And again, it's not just tied to categories. You could enter in all kinds of stuff. You could enter in margins. You could add in columns. You can remove columns you don't want. So remember, you can always manipulate the CSV file or the spreadsheet before you save the CSV and do it that way. And by the way, I would recommend as well, if you are going to edit a CSV file, do it in Excel. I know we've been looking a lot at using Notepad. Oops, let me do that one. We've been looking at using Notepad for editing CSVs. You don't really want to be doing that because it's very error prone. It's very easy to miss a comma or muck something up in it. So if you're going to edit a CSV file, don't use Notepad unless you really want to. You could, but I'd recommend load it in Excel. It's much more suited to this. And as long as you remember that when you save it, so if you make a change and you click save, remember that when it asks you about features being lost, that's just formatting. It's not data. So that's okay, and you want to say yes to keep using that format. Or if you're saving it from scratch, then remember to save it as a CSV file. Okay, so we've mentioned before about how you can use the product importer to refresh values as well. You can update prices, you can import stock levels, things like that. So let's have a look at doing that. So what we'll do is we've imported this CSV file, and what we're going to do is we're going to reopen this in Excel. And let me just have a check. Nope, that's the wrong one. We actually want this one here, myproducts.csv. We'll open this in Excel. What we're going to do is we're going to assume that we've already imported this data. Our supplier sent us this CSV file, and we've already imported the data. And initially, the price of this product was £5 as a cost price, and this one was 10. And let's say that 3 months later, the supplier issues a new price list, and the prices have changed, and you want to update Easify. Well, so let's say that this price has changed from £5 up to £7.50. And let's say this one has changed from 10 up to £12.50. And we'll save our changes. And yes, we'll keep using that format. And we'll close that. Okay, so with these products already existing, let's go back to our product importer, import products. And we'll choose our standard mapping. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll just accept all the defaults on that. Oops, and we click next. And what we get now is the following. You'll see that we get an update existing action. Instead of the action being add new, now we get update existing. So because the Easify has detected that our SKU already exists, so there's already a product in the system with a matching SKU number, the Easify Product Importer has matched that product up, and it said, oh, okay, this product already exists, so I'm not going to add it as a new one. I'm just going to update the existing one. And you can see that the cost price is £7.50, and the of this product, and the cost price of the second product is £12.50. And we've also got a warning as well. Now, it's always worth understanding the warnings here. If you get a warning, don't just kind of think, oh, it'll be okay, and click import. If you do that, you're likely to mess things up. So if you get a warning, always understand what the warning is saying. And if you don't understand what the warning means, then, well, you can either contact us at support@easify.co.uk, or you can untick it and not import it. So I wouldn't recommend that you import something with a warning unless you really know what you're doing with that. But what you can see for this one is that it's saying warning, imported category different to category stored in Easify. Imported subcategory different to subcategory stored in Easify. Now you can see because we've imported these categories, it's warning us that the categories have actually changed. That could happen if your manufacturer changed something on a line. It could be the description's changed. This will warn you that there's a difference. And again, if you're happy with that, then you can accept the warning and go ahead and import. What I'm going to do, because I want to demonstrate the price refreshing and not the updating of the subcategories, I'm just going to go back and I'm going to unmap the category and I'm going to unmap the subcategory. I don't want to import those because I don't want to change them. So we'll click next. And now the data is valid. And note that it says the action is update existing, and it's going to update anything that's changed. Now, the only thing that's changed is the cost price. You can see that if you look behind here, product 1 had a cost price of 5 and product 2 had a cost price of 10. And now in the preview, we can see that product 1 has a cost price of £7.50 and product 2 has a cost price of £12.50. So we'll go ahead and import that and import and finish. And just keep an eye on these values when I click the refresh button. And you can see now the prices have been updated. So that's a really handy way that you can take in a supplier price list and then you can re-import it with existing products and it will refresh the prices for you. Now, the other thing you can use this for is for updating stock levels. Now, typically with stock levels, I'd recommend that you use the purchasing system. So you'd raise purchases and let's have a look in here. So you'd raise purchases, and then when you move a purchase to received, you can then have the stock levels automatically updated. So that's the recommended way to manage your stock control. But you can also update stock levels via spreadsheets. So let's say you have a spreadsheet and it contains stock levels. So let's open up my products.csv, and I'm just going to expand it so we can see all the columns. And let's say that we have a stock level that comes in as well. So, maybe this is some kind of delivery note CSV. Maybe you get a delivery note in CSV or Excel format that has how much stock you're receiving. So let's say we have 10 of those and 20 of those, and we'll save that. So as I say, let's say that you receive some stock and you receive a spreadsheet. You can use those stock levels to refresh your stock levels. So if we go to, let me just expand this so you can see the stock levels. On-hand stock level is 0. Okay, so we've got none in stock. So file, import products, and I'm going to choose my mappings again, and I'm going to just, I'm going to get rid of the category. Oops. And I'm going to get rid of the subcategory. I'm just going to save that so I don't have to do that every time. And now with stock level, I'm going to import the stock level into the stock level. So I'm importing the stock level this time. And we click next. And we'll expand it so we can see what's going on. And you can see it's saying update existing. So it's not going to add a new product. It knows the product already exists because we're matching the SKU. And incidentally, you can match this if you import our SKU, manufacturer SKU, supplier SKU, or EAN, any of those will match and tally up the product. So it's telling us we've got a stock level of 10 and 20. And if you look here, we've got zeros. And if we scroll down, there's a setting that affects this here. So if you see here, we have a tick box for overwrite stock levels. And if I read the text, if I can get it to stay on the screen, it says, when selected, this option causes the imported stock level to overwrite the stock level for the product. Bring it back up again. When deselected, imported stock levels are added to current stock levels. So what that's saying is that at the moment, if we refresh this, it's just going to add those values into stock. So we'll click import and we'll import, click finish, and then we'll refresh the view and watch the on-hand stock level. And you can see now we have 10 and 20. If we do it again, go file, import products, we'll import the same thing again. my mapping's 1, and we'll just map the stock level to the stock level. And you can see it's going to import the stock level of 10, and we've got overwrite stock levels is not ticked. And we click import, and we go ahead and we click finish, and then we refresh. Notice that these values will go up again because we've added stock in. So the stock levels in the CSV file are added to what we've got in stock. What you could do, for example, you could do a stock take. You might do a stock take, and you could go around with an Excel spreadsheet and actually put in the values of how much you've actually got in stock. So you could walk around with a spreadsheet, look at a product, and just note down the actual stock level that you've got of that product, and then import it to actually refresh all your stock levels. And if you do that and you want to replace the stock level, then you just simply go File, Import Products, and again, we'll load our mappings up. And I haven't saved this one, which maybe I should have done to save a bit of time, but that's okay. And we'll have a look here, and this is saying that we're going to import stock level of 10 and a stock level of 20, and at the moment we're showing we've got 20 and 40 in stock. Now if we go down and we say overwrite the stock levels, now when we do the import, that's going to replace that value with this value. So or preview, because we've changed it, then import and finish, and then refresh, and you can see it's basically overwritten those stock levels. Okay, so just to finish up, I'm just going to show you a more complicated spreadsheet. This is the one we probably looked at the beginning, which if we open this in Excel, you can see there's quite a lot going on here. And this is a test spreadsheet that we use when we're testing mods to the importer system. We actually use this for our testing because it's got some very good bad values in it. It's got a lot of bad values that help us just to make sure that the product importer can actually verify data properly. And you can see there's quite a lot of columns going on, so it's quite a complex CSV file. So I'll just show you this to show you what this looks like. I don't want to save my changes, so we'll go File, Import Products, and this time I'm going to choose our product importer test data. I don't have a mapping for that, so we'll create one, and you can see here that there are loads of columns to import, and I'm not going to import them all, but we'll just go through and import some of them. So we'll have description, let's import manufacturer, and we'll map category and subcategory. What else have we got? We could do supplier stock code. We can pull that in, goes to supplier SKU. Shipping weight into weight. What else could we do? Cost price, we want to import the cost price. And let's import the retail margin and the trade margin as well, which is here, trade margin. And I'm going to save that as test CSV. It's quite a complex mapping. I don't want to have to do that again. Click on next. And you can see it's taking a little longer because there's a lot more data for it to crunch. As I say, bear in mind, if you're importing a big CSV file, it can take a long time to preview. So, I mean, another handy tip with that is while you're working on the preview stage, you know, what typically happens is that when you're doing an import, you'll get your CSV file and you'll map some columns, and you do a preview and see things you don't like, and then you go back and tweak the CSV file or tweak the mappings, and you go round and round doing that. You don't want to do that on a 10,000 product price list, because that will just take ages to preview, because there's a lot of, Easify does tons and tons of cross-checking and verifying, and it takes time. So another handy tip is if you've got a big CSV to import, just save a copy of it that's only got 2 or 3 products on it. Just, you know, literally save it with just the header row for the column names and 2 or 3 products. And then you can go through this process of tuning it and tweaking it and testing it, do a little test import, you know, see if it works, make sure you're happy with it. And then when you are happy with it, you can then go for the big import, where you may have to do a preview and then go and have a cup of tea while you're waiting for it to finish, because there's a lot of data. Equally with that, another handy thing to do is to actually, even when you're doing a big import, is to split the CSV file into, say, 4 separate files. So if you're importing, say, 1,000 products, just load it up in Excel and split it out into 4 smaller CSV files and do them one at a time. It's just quicker, easier, and if there's a problem, you know, right at the very end of it all, then you haven't wasted a load of time. So let's have a look at this more complicated example. I'm not actually going to import this, but it's just an opportunity to kind of show you some of the other things you might see. So as you can see, there's quite a few products here, and on purpose, the first few products have errors. We've introduced errors so that we can do some tests. And if you look at the first line, it says won't import. You can't click it, so you can't accidentally import a faulty line. And it says cost price cannot be 0, and the cost price is shown as 0. And indeed, you need to import a cost price greater than 0. You do have the option down here. You can say allow 0 price product. So I believe that will let you import 0 price cost price, but typically you're going to need a cost price. So that's telling us what's wrong there. If we look at this one, it says cost price cannot be 0, trade margin cannot be less than 0, and retail price ex VAT cannot be less than 0. So we've got a problem there with the trade margin value. And let's just scroll across. You can see that's in red. And the trade margin is -1. Well, a margin has to be between 0 and 99.99 recurring. So a margin can't be 100. And in fact, here you can see there's a margin of 100. And we've got an error saying that trade margin must be less than 100. What else have we got? Here we've got an error because the cost price is not a valid number. And in fact, it's blank, so I don't know what the actual error with that is. Let's have a quick look. If I open up the test data, and which one was that? That was the 1, 2, 3. That's a fourth product down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's expand the columns. And if we look at the cost price, oops, that one wasn't it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see if we can find the cost price column. There it is. So the cost price was A. So the product importer does check things like you haven't got letters where there should be numbers, and vice versa as well. So that's that one. We have trade margin XXX is not a valid number, and weight cannot be less than 0. So you can't have negative G products. And here we have retail price ex VAT, 1% is not a valid number. So again, this gives you an idea of what you might see if you've got errors. And again, when you're doing an import, always check the preview. So always go through and just make sure everything looks okay here. If there's an error, it just won't import, so that's okay. But it's more of a problem if you get warnings. You know, if it gives you a warning of something, ignore it at your peril. I'd always recommend with a warning to understand what the warning means, and then you can decide whether you want to accept that warning or not. You can import things with warnings on, and as I say, if you do, it will let you import things that may not be correct, and that's down for you to test. Okay, that pretty much wraps it up for the Easify Product Importer. If you've got any questions about using the Easify Product Importer, then feel free to ask us in the comments below or email us support@easify.co.uk. In the meantime, I hope you found this video useful, and until next time, thanks for watching.